It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Not in the convention center right now, Alan, like the last couple.
No, it was a bit of a shorter day today. So back at the hotel room here and just getting my thoughts together after another day of interviews. Talked to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs today. We've got the corners, safeties, and tight ends. They're running right now as we're recording this. So we'll have some numbers, probably not all of them, to talk about. And, another day here in Indy.
So you got to talk to the quarterbacks today. The Steelers didn't seem to have very much interest in talking to the quarterbacks there, though, which is interesting for one reason or another, Alan, that the Steelers just really aren't doing. I get that you could say like the Senior Bowl guys, right? I guess, that they could have talked to guys down there. Bo Nix was part of that. Michael Penix was part of that. Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, like the guys you think the Steelers would have interest in, but like no due diligence really done at the combine. It doesn't sound like at the position.
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird in that, like, usually you don't get to all the guys that you might be interested in at the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Game. But, I mean, I think maybe the Steelers did, right? Because, obviously Caleb Williams and Drake May are out of their range. It sure seems like Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy are out of their range, but they didn't even kind of do like a due diligence interview with McCarthy. They haven't talked to any of those guys throughout this process. Now, the guys they have talked to, they didn't choose to talk to again, right? So they did an informal with Bo Nix. I guess that's one. But like Penix, Travis Rattler, Hartman, Mixon, all these guys that are Pratt from Tulane, that are kind of the, I guess, quarterbacks 5 through 10 in this class. It's not like they're hounding them here. I mean, they're doing a couple interviews, but they're not showing a lot of obvious interest in these guys.
Does that change your opinion at all in terms of the Steelers taking one of those guys in the middle rounds?
I kind of thought before the Senior Bowl that they would take a quarterback on day 3. After what I thought was just an abysmal performance from Nix and Penix there, I kind of started to question whether they would or they wouldn't. I think there are probably a couple of guys that they would draft in certain spots, but I'm not so sure how it's going to line up. I don't really know what the market is going to be for a lot of these guys. I think a lot of, I was looking today at like a guy like Jordan Travis, right? Where, and I talked to him a good bit today as well, and we can talk about that. But where is he going to go? I think that's still a very open question. It's always hard to evaluate guys that are injured. He told me today that he's out of his boot, but he's not going to be throwing, running, anything until May. So no one is getting any kind of pre-draft evaluation on this guy. I would call it an up and down career, but it was a down and up career, right? In college football, started out ugly, turned out to be very good at the end. Not, necessarily like prototypical physical size. Does have some useful athleticism, does some nice things out of structure, but right now, NFL mock draft database average has him at 158. That puts him in between the Steelers. Like that's like the 5th round. I think that feels fair to me, but like I've seen people talk about him like he's a lock as a day 2 pick, and I don't see that.
Would that be more a product of the other guys pushing themselves down as opposed to him? Maybe
I definitely
he just can't do anything. So
I don't think this is a very good quarterback class outside of those top like 2 or 3 guys, and I don't really know whether the demand for quarterbacks at the NFL level is going to override that or not. I think it's like the Kenny Pickett conundrum, right? Like we all knew that was a bad quarterback class. The question was just like, how long were NFL GMs going to say, yeah, we know it's a bad class, even though we need a quarterback, we should wait, or just nope, quarterback anyway. Like, I think that's a hard question to answer. And so there are only so many of them that I think are any good. Like what I would draft Travis, I would draft Pratt, I would draft Spencer Rattler. I feel like Nix and Penix are still being talked about way too highly for me to be interested in them where they are. Maybe if they fall, below the third or fourth round, I would get into it. But it's starting to feel like there is a chance that they don't draft a quarterback to me, really, for the first time, like a fairly strong one. Just because if you're only looking at three, maybe if let's say that my thinking is the same as the Steelers, and there's no guarantee of that. But let's say that that's it. Okay, like looking at these quarterbacks and where they're currently projected, the three guys they would take are like Travis, Pratt, and Rattler. Okay, well, I mean, if you do a draft with three targets, you're probably not going to get them. Like that's just the way the draft works. Like there's 31 other teams picking. Like even if they're likely to go around where you pick, like you're probably not going to get them, or and maybe
draft them way higher than they should.
And maybe if one of them is available, let's say like, okay, the Steelers do kind of like Jordan Travis was one of their fourth round picks, but they also like, I don't know, Mikey Sanders still as a second round pick, and suddenly somehow they're in the fourth. Well, you'd take Sanders still anyway, even though the guy that you would have taken in the fourth round turned out to be there. And so I am starting to like feel around with the guys at the bottom of the class just to see what maybe there's like a seventh rounder, an undrafted free agent. I think Talia Tagovailoa is a guy that we probably haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, obvious Tomlin Maryland connection there, NFL bloodline thing that the Steelers get excited about. Lots of production. A lot of it's erratic. I don't know. But like maybe that's a swing as like a seventh rounder. It does seem like this quarterback class really seems to lack upside. I mean, Joe from Tennessee,
Joe Milton,
Joe Milton from Tennessee. I talked to him today. Like he's got a big arm. I guess that's an upside swing, but he doesn't have any idea where the ball's going. I don't know.
No.
That feels like I guess he's so big that maybe you could turn him into like a receiver or a tight end if it doesn't work as a quarterback. But
right, everybody keeps trying to make like the Anthony Richard comparison with him because it's like big dude, rocket arm. But that's basically where the comparisons stop in terms of where they're at.
Yeah, I was impressed by his just like intelligence and the way he came off as very smart. Very heady. I'm not really sure I knew that about him. Obviously, I never really met him, but I
don't know that that's the guy that I would trust like this current staff to develop.
Right. I mean, I guess with Tom Arth and Baker, they have probably a little bit better shot at developing a quarterback than maybe they did a month ago, but it's still not like what I would call a whole group of quarterback gurus, right? So I don't know. Rattler, I think, is probably Rattler and Travis. I think Rattler and Travis are the most interesting guys here for the Steelers. I think they'll be available around their third or fourth round picks, and that seems like a reasonable place to take a quarterback. I just don't know if that's what they're going to want to do. Travis's injury was a broken bone, which are generally like pretty straightforward, but the fact that he can't throw, I think really puts a wrench into this evaluation. So I really don't know where these quarterbacks are going to be valued by the league and how that's going to impact the Steelers. But I just don't get the sense that they're super gung-ho about these guys. I don't know.
Well, we talked yesterday giving predictions on what we thought the quarterback room was going to be, and we both included a draft pick from this draft class. So, I asked if your mind changed on that, but like 24 hours later, would you still include somebody from this draft class in your 2020?
I think I would. Did I pick Travis? I think I did. I think I would, but I will just say with the caveat of like, there's only one of those guys out there. If I say like, oh, they're going to draft Jordan Travis with a fourth round pick, like they can, but like if somebody else wants to one pick ahead of them, like sure. And then it's all gone. Like there's nobody else. It's not like corner where if like, the Steelers are like, yeah, we really want a first round corner. Oh, somebody took Terry Down. Oh, somebody took Kool-Aid. Oh, somebody took Quinn Mitchell. Okay, we got Cooper DeJean. Great. Like there just aren't that many options.
Yeah.
And so if they start to go, it kind of wrecks the plan.
Sure. I want to talk about the other position groups, but I almost want to work in like reverse order. So the order that we had just got today with the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs talking, just because if for some reason we start to get too long on time, we've kind of already touched on the other guys. So receivers today, what I thought was interesting, you can tell me if I'm off base in thinking this, is the amount of formal interviews that the Steelers were using with guys that are going to be at the top of the draft, first round picks, second round picks, maybe some third round guys in there as well. But I wasn't expecting to see like, A.D. Mitchell within that group or Troy Franklin. Those ones were a little bit surprising to me. Does it mean anything? Are you giving it any credence, or is this just them again doing due diligence?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit surprised by the number of like early round wide receivers they talked to. I do think wide receivers in need. But I think when you look at the fact that you already have Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, and the Steelers have been so good at mining the latter part of the draft for wide receiver talent, and I think it's a pretty deep class. I'm awfully fond of a number of guys that are late second to fourth round picks in this draft, where I think I'm a little surprised that they talked to so many guys that are first round wide receivers. Brian Thomas from LSU would be a number 20 kind of pick. And that's one of the guys they talked to. Troy Franklin from Oregon, I think probably is like a trade back to the end of the first round kind of guy. Same with A.D. Mitchell. Lad McConkey they talked to at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if they talked to him here, but he's in that same boat. Xavier Worthy, Xavier Legette. They talked to both Washington receivers, Polk and McMillan. Yeah. They met with Malachi Corley previously. They've met with Tez Walker and Ricky Pearsall previously, Brendan Rice, Javon Baker, so Johnny Wilson,
Keon Coleman here.
Yeah, right. And so there's a lot of guys in that, really from like 20 down to 90 range, I would say, where they're kind of hitting all. It sure seems like they're prepping pretty substantially for the wide receiver position to be an earlier pick than I probably would have pegged it to be.
Yeah, and that's why it's so interesting to me. Is there like in your mind, does it put the thought in there of, okay, this is a third option, or does it have any like, okay, Deontay Johnson's going into the last year of his contract. We talked about Pat Freiermuth yesterday as a potential trade candidate. Is Deontay Johnson, if they're looking at receivers early, does it put the thought in your head, maybe they're looking to move him?
I mean, they still need one, even if they have Deontay Johnson.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I can't. I'm having a hard time seeing it. Maybe it is just they're not going to extend Deontay Johnson thought, right?
Yeah.
Where they've just decided that this will be his last year, and they're trying to draft his eventual replacement right now, a guy who could be a third receiver in 2024 and a second receiver in 2025. That makes some sense to me. And don't get me wrong, I think it's possible they could trade Deontay, but I don't really correlate this, this level of interest to that happening.
Yeah. Just a weird fit in the offense, though, don't you think? Like Deontay Johnson and Arthur Smith's offense.
I mean, he's more of a slot in this offense, I think, than he is an outside receiver, which is okay. He can do that. He's played it before. But it's definitely not like as good of a fit as a guy, like Keon Coleman, for example, who's just a big, strong, physical receiver, or even a guy who maybe isn't going to go that high, but like a Malachi Corley, Brendan Rice. And so I don't really know what to make of this. I definitely think just in general, we should probably start to get our heads around the idea that Deontay Johnson's time in Pittsburgh is ticking. Like, I don't know that they're going to be able to work on this extension. Whether they trade him or whether they let him go, I would think that like combine the odds of those two right now, probably greater than the odds of me getting a press release this spring saying the Steelers have reached a 4-year contract extension with wide receiver Deontay Johnson. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't, like, the fit in the offense isn't that good. He's very clearly not entirely happy with the way things are going in terms of the passing offense. And they're pretty clearly looking at like guys that would be Deontay Johnson replacements here in this draft class.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. And the other group was running backs, which, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren on the roster, but they do need a third one. Was there anybody there that, kind of jumps off the page to you? Was like, this guy would certainly fit what the Steelers are looking for in a third back?
I mean, I'm not really 100% sure what they're looking for in a third back. There are some guys I like at the bottom of this class. The one I really wanted to talk to was Rasheen Ali from Marshall,
Yep.
and he tore his bicep in the Senior Bowl and was very tied up in the medical process because of that, and actually didn't ever get to his interview session. So that didn't happen. But there are other guys out there that I think could fit the Steelers in this class at running back. I think that's an under talked about position that they could look to draft this year. And I think we've talked about this before, right? I mean, it's the 5th-year option for Najee. It's a restricted free agent year after 2024 for Jalen Warren. Like, there's uncertainty at that position going forward. And I think, everybody always says that running backs are undervalued because you can find good running backs anywhere in the draft. Well, you can, but that doesn't mean you always will. If you see a future need there at the position, why not take a swing right now and see if you can find a guy? Ray Davis is a guy we talked about from my time in the Senior Bowl. I really like. I think he'd be a perfect fit for him. A couple other guys I talked to today that I think are a little bit earlier picks, probably not as likely because like Bucky Irving from Oregon, Audric Estime from Notre Dame, Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, Blake Corum from Michigan. These are guys that are probably going to be day 2 or early day 3 picks. I think that's a little bit too soon for running back. I'll just throw out a couple other names. Dylan Labe from New Hampshire is another guy I talked to at the Senior Bowl. Isaiah Davis was at the Senior Bowl. I didn't get a chance to talk to him there from South Dakota State. Frank Gore Jr. It is just the year of NFL bloodlines. I swear, like every time I turn around, there's like, oh, here's another one. The Steelers love him. We all know it. I think it is reasonable to put him on the board. And yes, Frank Gore. I feel like he was like just like 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he definitely got all the juice that he possibly could out of his career. Probably played a little bit longer than he should have, but all credit to him. It wasn't that long ago that he retired, but his son, Frank Gore Jr. coming out. It's just crazy to hear. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is one thing, but Frank Gore Jr. is completely different level for me to hear.
Yeah, Brendan Rice feels like, okay, that's normal, right?
Yeah.
Like Jerry Rice was here a long time ago. Yeah, he's that fits. Frank Gore, come on now.
When did Frank Gore last play? I'm looking at it right now. His last year was 2020 with the Jets.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay, yeah. Dang, they almost had like a man, like a.
Was he trying to get to the point where he
has there been a father-son NFL duo? Like, I mean, I know it's been done in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, because I can't imagine with how long careers typically are. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
I saw 2020 and I was like, seriously? Like you, I probably would have guessed somewhere in the mid 2010s.
Yeah, they're gonna get okay. So it did happen one time in 1921 for the Columbus Panhandles.
Of course, yeah.
And the okay, so it did happen. The next closest time was Ed and Brad Buddy, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs. The father finished his career in 76 and the son started in 80, so 4 years apart. So they will tie the modern NFL mark for the closest gap between father and son in NFL history. That's kind of crazy.
Has that been put out there yet? You could put that out there and maybe be the one to put it out. They're tying the modern gap for the.
I'll just keep that in my pocket in case the Steelers draft him.
There we go. All right. We've kind of touched on the other groups that had, already talked, and we're seeing, like you said, the corners and safeties and tight ends do their testing and stuff today. But just wanted to kind of go over some general thoughts within those groups. I mean, is there anything that jumped off the page to you now that we're starting to get some testing numbers in for the DBs and stuff about these guys? Any guys that you thought were fits that maybe aren't, or vice versa, or just general takeaways?
Something to watch is the Clemson cornerback Nate Wiggins popped a hip flexor running in his 40 today.
Yeah.
And so that'll be something to monitor. Kool-Aid McKinstry, when he went through his medical testing, was revealed to have a Jones fracture in his foot that's going to require surgery before the start of the season. So he will probably miss some OTAs or something like that. As a result of that. So a couple of injury issues popping up there, I think, to monitor. Cooper DeJean, obviously recovering from that broken leg during the season, is also still not running. So, and Kamari Lassiter didn't run. I'm not quite sure why he didn't. But Wiggins, before he got hurt, ran a 4.28, which is bonkers and very fast. Quinyon Mitchell ran a 4.33. Yeah. I have to now think that despite the Steelers' repeated interest in Mitchell, that he is not going to make it really anywhere close to them at 20. Yeah. I really believe that he's going way earlier. A guy that maybe I think a lot of people had pegged up the board ahead of them that didn't run that well, that I think maybe could stumble down towards 20, is a guy like Terrion Arnold, only ran a 4.5. Now, again, with those other guys not running, it's really hard to say right now. Like if Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid and all these other guys also run in the high 4.4s or 4.5, then it's not that bad, right? He won't fall in relation to the other guys, but we're not going to know that until I guess DeJean is trying to run his pro day. I don't know what Kool-Aid's plan is. So I think there's a chance though that maybe Terrion Arnold kind of falls down towards them. I was questioning whether Nate Wiggins was a great fit for the Steelers anyway. I think, again, that's a guy with a 4.28 probably will go before. I would say that right now, I think Mitchell's the number one corner in the class. I feel like we've learned that this week. I think he will be probably near 10. And then I'm still not sure that we have a ton of separation from the rest of these guys. But I think maybe Wiggins might be the second one, just with that speed. And a lot of teams do look for what he is, although the Steelers aren't usually one of them. And I think we've kind of we didn't learn a lot, but we learned a little bit. Some guys farther down the board, man. Mikey Sanders still. This guy has Steelers tattooed across his forehead. 10-11 broad jump, 40-inch vert.
Yeah.
Now, he did only measure 5'9" and change, which is not as tall as he was listed at Michigan, but 4.4, 740. He's made some money. I have to he is such an ideal fit for the Steelers in the slot. Like it's such a perfect fit. If you want to look a little bit farther down about a slot option, Penn State's Daquan Hardy, Penn Hill's product, 4.38. That is fast. And I think, he's a guy that if they don't get one earlier, he's probably a day 3 pick, 42.5-inch vertical for him, also measured in at 5'9". So I think Daquan Hardy, for me, is a guy who moves up the board. Max Melton from Rutgers. I didn't think he had a great Senior Bowl. I got to talk to him a good bit today. He tested very well. 11.4 broad, 40.5-inch vertical, 4.39 40. I think he's another probably slot option. I don't think, he's more like the Cam Sutton side of the Steelers slot where they've kind of had that dual role where it was like Hilton and Sutton. You had the bigger, thicker, more physical Hilton who would play rundowns and rush the passer, and then you would bring Sutton in when it was 3rd and 10, and you just really needed coverage. I think Melton would be more the coverage side of that arrangement if that's where they put him, but fast, obviously. Lots of guys running pretty good times. It doesn't seem like it's been an exceptional kind of speed track kind of day like we had a little while ago. A couple of guys also, we talked about the sort of model, right, that the Steelers had last year with Joey Porter Jr., Corey Trice, Darius Rush. If they want to go down that road again, I think a couple of guys who measured out quite nicely. Cam Hart, 6'3", 33-inch arms, 202. and he ran a 4.5 from Notre Dame. Also at 4.5, Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, 6'4", 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 194 pounds. So if you're looking for more big guys, and I think those are probably third or maybe fourth round picks, I think those guys feel very Steelers-like to me as well.
I wanted to ask your opinion on this because I've seen, a lot of people in general discussing this draft class and saying like the top 10, at least trying to find spots for defensive players. Like it's going to be a lot of quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive tackles. So when do we even see like the defensive players start going? And that could be a case where, like you just mentioned, maybe it is like a Terry and Arnold slipping into the Steelers' hands at 20 because you're going to see guys like Quinyon Mitchell, maybe Wiggins, maybe even Cooper DeJean, depending on what he does at his pro day, since he didn't do anything at the combine, going ahead of him.
Yeah, Dallas Turner, I think, is the one guy who's like a very clear top, maybe not 10, but probably 11 pick. Jared Verse from Florida State is very talented, but there's not a ton of edge-hungry teams like right where he is. Like maybe he could fall to the Colts at 15. That feels like a place for him. Laiatu Latu from UCLA is a guy who's very, very productive in college. Heard there was some medical stuff popped up with him. I'm not really sure I think I saw him mocked to the Rams at 19. Like there just are not a lot of high level and like the best defensive tackles, Murphy and Newton. I think they're both probably 10 to 25 kind of guys, 15 to 25 kind of guys. Maybe it is definitely going to be a very offensive heavy first round of the draft. I really think that the number of quality tackles is helping there. And, and I think we're going to get quarterback in the first 3 picks and Marvin Harrison Jr. fourth. And you can pretty much write those in ink right now. Like I unless somebody does something stupid, I think we've got a pretty good handle on how the top of the draft is going.
My prediction here, I'm going to go out on a limb and just throw this out there right now for a player team fit. And it's going to be Quinyon Mitchell to the Indianapolis Colts, 15.
I'm telling you, with the way he ran today, I don't know if he makes it that far. There's somebody in there who's going to need a corner. How about the Raiders at 13?
The Raiders for sure. Although they might just be like Wiggins was faster, so we're taking him instead. Just they care that much more about the speed.
That is true.
Yeah. Okay, so there we go in terms of the cornerbacks and stuff. We've touched a little bit on safety. We've had that discussion though, like should the Steelers be in the market on free agency as opposed to the draft for safety? So any general thoughts with that position group?
Not too many. I mean, these guys haven't run yet, so I don't have times for the safeties. It's a group of play. Like there's a lot of players that I like. It's not a very highly I don't know when the first safety is going to be taken.
Yeah,
Cam Kittens from Miami is probably the guy, but I mean,
him or Tyler Nubin, right? I mean,
yeah, but it could be pretty far down the line. Like I wouldn't really be surprised if we don't see a safety taken until the middle of the second round. And they did meet with Newman, and so he wasn't at the Senior Bowl. So I mean, they got Kitchens at the Senior Bowl. Kim Chins, I can't. That one's just like kills me every time. I got Kinchins.
Yeah, Cam Kitchens.
I can't.
It's always going to be Kitchens.
I know it's not I know it's not Kitchens, but it's what is it instead of Kitchens that I think the Steelers probably need some safety help. I like a lot of players that are day 3 picks in this draft. I don't really think that there's that many that are going to go before that. It would not surprise me if one of those 2 4th-round picks is a safety. And there's a number of guys that I really like that are in that range. Cole Bishop from Utah, Jaden Hicks from Washington State, Tyke Smith from Georgia, although I think he's more of a slot than a safety, Bo Braid from Maryland. And then maybe a little bit later, guys like Josh Proctor from Ohio State, Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest. Those are all guys that we saw at the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl safety class, I think, was really good. It had almost all the top guys. Javon Bullard is a guy I really like from Georgia, but he's like more of a free safety type for me. I don't think he's a great fit for what the Steelers need right now. I would consider Tyke Smith more of a slot than a safety.
Yeah.
A lot of people have him listed as safety, but I think the Steelers would use him in the slot. Even if I don't say Dadrian Taylor-Deverson, Nick is going to knife me in my sleep tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He has a large crush on a very small man, safety from Texas Tech, who I got to meet this week, and he's probably more of a 5th or a 6th round pick, but he's certainly an interesting guy, very athletic and a whole lot of experience. And so that's something. The last one, James Williams, we've talked about him here too. You know, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? I think for the Steelers, he's an in-box safety. He's, wherever you categorize him, he's an option for the Steelers here too.
And then lastly, before we get out of here, just want to bring back up, because they ran yesterday, the linebackers, defensive linemen, the Steelers that showed interest, and guys that we expect to go within the first couple rounds at both of those spots. Did anybody, again, raise or lower their stock in your mind that could be on the Steelers' radar? Peyton Wilson, 4.44, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think Peyton Wilson is playing himself into the top. I mean, he could end up being the top linebacker in this class. Like, that wouldn't really surprise me at this point.
But even so, that could be like in the 40, right? Like top 40, but not in the first round.
It could be the Steelers at pick 51. It's very possible. Like, none of these guys are super high picks, but I think between Edgerrin Cooper, Texas A&M, Peyton Wilson, NC State, Junior Colson, Michigan, Jeremiah Trotter, Clemson, we have a very clear top 4 at linebacker. Nothing I saw really changed that except for maybe the order, right? Maybe Wilson moves up a little bit based on how he ran. He also does have like a ton of medical concerns. So that'll be a thing we kind of have to – it'll take some time for people to talk to people in the league and figure out what people heard and see how teams are going to react to that. Like, there's like a delayed effect on things like medicals in the sort of stock, right, in amongst people around the league. There's a lot of other options there. Trevin Wallace from Kentucky, Cedric Gray from North Carolina, Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State, another NFL bloodline. Didn't mention Jeremiah Trotter either. Tyron Hopper from Missouri. And a guy I liked at the Senior Bowl who's like a way down there, if you really want one, Marist Leo Fowl from Notre Dame. And I'm not even going to try the first name. Ed Ulafosio from Washington. If you want a Steelers connection there, he's very close with Mark Bruner's son, who plays tight end for Washington. It's coming out in next year's draft. He's like, I've spent like the night over their house like many times. So the Steelers have a solid scouting report on him. Michael Barrett from Michigan is another guy way down who's like a pure coverage linebacker. I think he could be a good fit for the Steelers. Steel Chambers, maybe not so much, but he's there, and his name's Steele, and so we should continue to mention him because
absolutely. Yeah. Mark Bruner's son is next year.
Yes.
All right, mark that down. 2025 NFL draft. All right, you got it.
So maybe they don't re-sign Freiermuth. Is that what you're saying? That's where you're going with this?
Yeah, maybe like they like Theo Johnson, but it doesn't happen this year. They wait till next year to draft a tight end.
They do like Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Steelers Afternoon Drive audience that went over and sprayed graffiti on all Steelers.
I saw some people comment about
a good amount of it over there. I really appreciate that. And just know that is all in good fun, by the way. I like Noah a lot, and I think they do a good job. But I really appreciate you guys helping me be childish and immature on the Steelers beat anytime I can. And so that was fun. Maybe we'll have to have like a crossover episode or something to hey, listen, we gave them some clicks, right? I mean, people went over there just to write on their wall. We're helping them out. So
and not that he needs it, but I almost want to try to see if we can get the audience to infiltrate Carter now. He doesn't need the clicks or anything, but if we have people go over there and say that the Steelers Afternoon Drive is better than Locked On Steelers, I don't know how many people will get on board with that idea, but
I'm not saying not to do it at all. So 100%.
I mean, if you guys want
I could get on board with that for sure. For sure.
If you want to, go ahead and do it. That's all we'll say. But Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers now. You can find me somewhere in Indiana I haven't had a fried pork tenderloin sandwich yet on this trip. If you have never been to Indiana or like anywhere else in the Midwest and you've not had a fried pork tenderloin sandwich, you need to alter that part of your existence and get that done. So I think that's my goal for the next 20 minutes. And then keep watching these corners and safeties and tight ends run, and we'll see how things go.
There we go. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments with any questions for when we come back over the weekend, your thoughts about anything that we talked about. And let us know if, for whatever reason, you're going to go in somebody else's page and let them know that Steelers Afternoon Drive is a superior podcast. We're not saying to do it. Just let us know if you do in the comments.
We're also not saying not to do it.
Right. Yeah. I want to make that very clear as well. For Alan Saunders, for myself, I'm Zachary Smith, PGH. Thanks for taking a ride with us on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.